You're listening to the Nutrition Experts Podcast, featuring guests who take the scientific talk about food and break it down for practical use. You've heard the phrase, "You are what you eat." Come find out what that really means. Experience conversations with experts in the field of nutrition and understand the power of food for our health, well-being, and beyond. Now, here's your host, registered dietitian and nutritionist, Mathea Ford.
Hi there, it's Mathea. Welcome back to the Nutrition Experts Podcast. The podcast featuring nutrition experts who are leading the way using food starts today, right now, with our next guest. It's great to have Ashley Koff on the show today. Ashley, welcome to Nutrition Experts. I'm excited to have you on the show and share your expertise with my tribe.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be connected with you personally and learn your story, and this is going to be a lot of fun. So thank you.
Yes, I know my listeners are going to love learning because your tools are for both consumers and you find a lot of healthcare professionals. So let's start with telling my listeners a little more about you and what you do.
Sure. Well, I never wanted to be a dietitian. I wanted to be, I'm probably going to date myself here. I wanted to be Angela Bauer from Who's the Boss. I loved advertising. I thought it was amazing to go to work, in New York City and come home to hunky Tony Danza, who was taking care of the house, right? So that was my vision. And I actually went to work in advertising. I worked in New York City. My client was Kellogg's and a couple of others. But I had my own health issues. And I had been somebody who had tried my whole life to figure them out. Really, for me, it was focused on my belly, and I could never lose it. It was always with me. And I tried every diet, and I tried to do things perfectly. I would follow Jenny Craig or Weight Watchers. I would go see, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a fitness professionals, like every different angle. And it wasn't until I met an integrative gastroenterologist who helped me understand that it was all the antibiotics I had as a child that just made me get bloated. I wasn't allergic or even intolerant to most foods. My digestive system just didn't have what it needed to run better, that I became so excited and passionate about what I call better nutrition. And I do feel we have to define better nutrition today, that it's giving your body what it needs to run better without giving it things that'll irritate and overwhelm and disrupt it. And so I started on this mission about 25 years ago to learn about nutrition. And where we are today, and this is really, it brings me to where I am. So I've been a practitioner for about 20 years. The base of my practice was in Los Angeles. I got to do a lot of celebrity work, but we all know that their health issues are just the same as any of ours, as well as, things like TV shows and stuff like that. But what I started to realize is there are a lot of people talking about nutrition today. And when any of us practice, we know as a dietitian, the first thing we're taught is to ask questions. You have to learn about your patient. And today, there are so many different ways that people are getting in nutrients. They could be taking supplements, they could be eating whole foods, or they could be eating food products that have fortifications, or this whole area of like functional foods. And now there are creams and sprays and just all these different ways to get in nutrients. And I realized that we really don't have a good system for assessing that. We have our RDAs, but a lot of the nutrition assessment tools don't assess what somebody's actually taking in most often. And so in the last 3 years, I've worked very hard to create those tools. I've got about 50 of those tools, everything from protein to magnesium to your trace minerals to water, fiber. And I make those tools available to practitioners as well as individuals to help them just as a starting point, whether you're going to do genetic testing or lab testing or, the whole 9 yards or just a couple of yards. It is really important, as we know, to know from a foundational standpoint what your body is getting or what it's not getting more often. And then that way we can get better outcomes. So I'm on a mission to change the way we assess nutrition in the country so we can get better outcomes.
I think that's a great explanation. Yeah, you're right. So many people, with all the different fad diets and everything, people are eliminating complete categories and nutrients. And it's just really hard as a dietitian to make sure that you ask all the questions that are going to get down to what's actually happening for that person, so then you can actually help them.
Exactly. And, on the flip side, you have things that are out there where somebody says, oh, broccoli, that's your great source of protein. And it's an oversimplification. Sure, there are amino acids in there, but how much broccoli would you need to eat? And we all know it's not a complete source of protein. So we need to do a little bit better with helping people understand, but we also don't want to make it too difficult. So I'm really trying to help connect the dots between the individual and their healthcare practitioners. And we all know as practitioners, when we have more information about our patients, we do better. And definitely, for our doctors and even fitness professionals, people where it's outside of their scope. And one of the areas that I have done a lot of studying in, and over the last 15 years for my nonprofit, for Ashley Koff Approved, I've evaluated over 150,000 products. And it started off because I was very clear that not all multivitamins are the same. So I wanted to make sure that we had a way to say, hey, what are you actually taking in? Because there's a difference if you're taking in 200 milligrams of calcium versus if you're taking in 400 milligrams of calcium. So trying to help people pull all of that together.
What types of tools do you see that consumers are using the most? Which of your tools?
Sure. And, I really looked at what tools already exist out there and why don't I think that they're helpful? So, for example, there are a lot of different, whether somebody's writing down and I think food journaling is still the best thing that you can do. So I created a food journal, a digital one and a hard copy one. But then I turned around and said, yeah, but these apps are having people count a lot of calories, and we need to know what those calories are. And so one thing that I created was a nutrition plan to help people understand where your different calories come from is going to make a difference. So we all know that 150 calories, if it's all from carbohydrate, is going to impact your body different than if it's 30% carb, 30% fat, 30% protein. And those are arbitrary 30s, right? And so, because that doesn't even add to 100. Anyway, we all know what I mean, right? And so then I was really focused on statistics. So for example, 70% of women, 80% of men are not meeting their RDA for magnesium. And I said, well, that's an interesting thing. I could go on Dr. Oz, and I do, or I could go on the local news, or I could go on, wherever I'm going to go and talk to healthcare practitioners and say, hey, we need to get in more magnesium because magnesium turns off the stress response. And that's so important for digestion and all these other things. But they need to then turn around and have advice. And I don't want to just turn around and say, so everybody needs a magnesium supplement. What about just eating some chocolate? What if you change your milk chocolate to dark chocolate? Or what if you learn that when you actually eat a whole grain instead of white flour, you increase your magnesium intake by several grams? And so one of the ones that people are using very often, and in particular, psychologists and also my practitioners that are dealing with people with sleep, weight loss, anxiety, so you can start to see why this one's really popular, they're using that magnesium tool. Now, what I did was I had to turn, there are different ways, and I think the way you said it, Mathea, is so smart, is that people don't necessarily think about dietitians as having specialties. And my specialty is definitely in digestive health, because I know that we are not what we eat. We are what we digest and absorb. And I believe that if your digestion is not working better, then you can't get any health outcome that you're looking for. And so I focus in on that part. And so what I did when I created the tools was I also put them into packages. So you have your digestive health package, your heart health package, you have your kids package, your hormone health package. And us dietitians, if we look behind the scene, you'll see a lot of redundancy behind all of them, right? But the way that people consume information today or think about their own health, they're not thinking about their overall body as much as they're thinking about specifically what they're trying to address. So I focus on the tools on that part.
I personally struggle with migraines, and I use magnesium and try to make sure I'm consistently getting a decent amount of magnesium because that helps with that condition for me, at least. I can see how that's a popular one. And I also see people do tend to have this focus on individual nutrients, but how do you help your clients or your consumers to have kind of a better overall diet? Because really, I think that's where we start focusing on one nutrient and then we forget about other ones. So how do you help them to build a more well-rounded diet that's good for them?
Yeah, you are so spot on. Within the tool, the reason these tools are unique, literally, if they existed, I would just be using them instead of having to create them, because it's not a lucrative business to create all these tools and make them work. It may be someday, but it certainly isn't right now. And so what I looked at is, so every tool goes through what foods could you be getting a nutrient from. Then also, are there any that might interfere with the absorption of those, or conflict with the absorption? How much of those foods, do you need to be getting in to meet your RDA? And then I go into the supplement space, and then I also go into a space about you and your health. And so, for example, when I'm asking in the other nutrient space, in the magnesium evaluation, I focus as much on calcium, because one of the reasons that we have an issue, not only are people not getting in their RDA for magnesium, we have people who, rightfully so, have listened to a lot of, healthcare practitioners have really focused in on calcium. But a lot of people have turned to supplemental calcium instead of calcium-rich foods. And as a result, they've been throwing out of, I call it almost, it's a conditional deficiency or a conditional challenge. The more calcium you get in, the more magnesium you need, because calcium, I like to make a bicep. Calcium is a muscle contractor and magnesium is a muscle relaxer. So I was actually just talking to a woman yesterday, and she switched to, she's getting in almond milk. She was not having any dairy, but she was also not having the almond milk before. Well, now she's getting in, and it says on the package, 50% more calcium than dairy milk. So she's actually getting in a lot of calcium and had not adjusted her calcium supplement or her magnesium intake. So your point is, if we are going to focus on nutrients, we better focus on nutrients overall. But I always start people a step back, which is thinking about what is your overall objective. So it's the digestive evaluation, or with heart health, what I try to focus on. And again, behind the scenes, if any dietitian's looking at this, you're going to know, oh, this is just an assessment for better nutrition. Where are your carbohydrates coming from? What kinds of proteins are you taking in? What healthy fats are you getting in? Are you getting in too much of non-healthy, less healthy fats? What are you doing from a water intake? Those kinds of things. I'm always asking those questions so that we can make sure that somebody doesn't think that their solution is just one nutrient. But I think your question is really such an important one, and it's a challenge to a lot of us nutrition professionals. So I look at it as two things. One, I'm not going to change the fact that people are doing these fad diets. So for example, I just did a webinar on, if you are doing a ketogenic diet, here are the things you have to do, because your body still needs certain nutrients. So if you're skipping, which blows my mind, but people are doing it and it's not for me to judge, but if you're skipping a lot of vegetables because of their carbohydrate content, then you need to make sure that you are getting those in. And so I went through, in my opinion, what are better sources of, whether it's a powder that you're adding or whether it's, in your multi or these kinds of things, as a way to make sure that you're not missing out on those core nutrients. And then we also know we have patients who sometimes are just challenged because of something that's going on to get something in. And so then this is a good way to help them round it out. So I always just come back to, we know what better nutrition is and isn't. And that's in every package that I have of tools, there's always the better nutrition plan, which explains what better nutrition looks like, which is a balance of nutrients and trying to reduce your intake of things that could be irritating. I mean, when we just take in too much, it's overwhelming to the system. But really great question.
That kind of leads me a little bit to think about, where are consumers looking for information on healthier diets? So they're not necessarily going, I need a better better nutrition assessment, searching for that. But where are they looking for information on a healthier diet? And then part two, how can RDs be part of that discussion?
Oh, this is my favorite. So remember, I told you I wanted to be Angela Bauer. So I started off, I love marketing. So please, if you ever want marketing help, that is something that I love to talk about. And I do a lot of talking about it, probably because I enjoy it. First and foremost, nobody wants better nutrition. Let me be super clear. It is the name of my company. Nobody wants it. So we all want better health, and the outcome is what we want. And so you have to, from a marketing standpoint, be very clear that nutrition, and in particular better nutrition, and your better nutrition, what your body needs, is the vehicle, a very dominant vehicle to getting better health. So in your messaging as a dietitian, if you focus in on, I see this all the time, that your deliverable is nutrition, is better nutrition, you will improve someone's nutrition, you will help them with this nutrition-wise, you are actually not going to engage them because nobody wants it. In reality, if we could just exist, some people are like, hey, if I never had to eat any food, but I could be healthy, I'd be happy. Now, I'm a total foodie. That would be a disaster to me. But if I could just eat whatever I wanted to eat and be healthy, which is what we thought probably for many people up until probably like the 80s or the 90s, then it was like, and then we're like, uh-oh, we actually do have to pay attention. And oh, by the way, there is something called better nutrition. So I'm kind of merging part 1 and part 2, but one of my strongest recommendations in any of your communications is to think about, what does the person who you want to talk to have a conversation, how did they express better health? So is it that their energy is crashing? Is it that their skin looks dull and dry? Is it that their belly's bloated no matter that they just finished a marathon or feel like they eat very well? Like, what's the thing that or is it that they really care about the health of someone else and have concern, so they're stressed about it, and wherever you're going to interact. So in today's world, we're really lucky because we have a lot of tools that we can use from a marketing standpoint to help us, like with quizzes. I think I was telling you, Mathea, that I'm really excited when you talk about like, where are people looking? They're looking for nutrition. So they're looking for health answers and guidance everywhere. And as a result, companies are all, and people, and everybody is talking everywhere. I even use the term infobesity. Like we have too much information and it's not leading to action, right? It actually can like stop us. Where people are looking, they're like, as a dietitian, I would say, so they're looking everywhere. So what you need to understand is to have them not just look to you, but invest in you and want to have a relationship with you. You have to be very clear about the fact that your training and your experience and what your brand is allows them to actually get the better health results that they're seeking. And so that's why I've made my tools available in a shared partnership for dietitians. I do a different program even for dietitians than I do for, people who are not, don't have our license, whether it's a health coach or whether it's a fitness professional or someone. But you need to make sure that you can say to them, I have a toolkit that's going to help you get this better result. And then what you also want to do is focus in on, what are all the points in the day that somebody can talk to them? So one of the ones that most recently came to me, I know everybody's on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, but I also realized that's a place of massive infobesity. I mean, I actually, as a dietitian, get upset sometimes being on those platforms because I notice myself, I start to think about what I had to eat. Now I know what to do for myself, right? And so I'm like, so if the amount of information and what I'm looking at is even making me feel like I might have a problem or something I need to address, imagine what it's doing for the person who doesn't have the training and does have that problem to address. So I look for places where people are not talking as much about it. And so one of the areas for me that's recently opened up, we were talking about this, is Alexa. And Alexa actually pointed out to me, was not using Alexa. Alexa didn't tell me this, but the minds behind Alexa told me that there's not really anyone offering any nutrition tips there. And that blew my mind. Are you kidding me? People have Alexa around them all the time, and they're used to Alexa telling them what to do or what they need to know. So that's an area that I've gone into with my better nutrition skill, and people can open that skill and ask a nutrition question. And I invite other professionals to, if they have questions and answers and things they want to promote, to be a part of my better nutrition skills. If you're listening and that's of interest, please reach out to me. And I think that that's a great way to do something that's different than what exists out there and maybe where everybody is already talking about something about nutrition.
That is a great explanation. And I think it's a paradigm shift for dietitians because we really do think about things as nutrition and kind of the features or how it works. And you just made me think about, like, diabetics don't want to count carbs, but they want better blood sugar. So if getting better blood sugar means better nutrition by counting carbs, you're not going to tell them, hey, I'm going to help you learn to count carbs. I'm going to help you get better blood sugar.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to make it deliciously easy. Like, that's how, you know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That type of thing. And so with your Alexa skill, is that something we just ask Alexa, hey, activate the better nutrition skill, or?
Exactly. So there you can open my better nutrition skill. So you just say, Alexa, open my better nutrition skill. And the first time she'll ask, do you want daily tips? Do you want to ask questions? You can say you want to do both. You can, and you can set that up. And then we also have a cool function there where I will send you more information via web link. And so if you at any point want more information, because as we all know, just like Twitter, 140 characters, especially I'm Ashley Koff.Hi. I am an over speaker or an oversharer. So I'm not good. I can't do it in the short amount of time. I made things very short for Alexa. So I say in there, if you want more tips and resources, then you can just provide your phone number the one time, and then we'll be able to send you stuff via web link. As a practitioner, if you have something that you want to submit to me as a question, and I'm happy to promote you, it does not need to be that it's going back to, it's not about Ashley Koff on this part. It's about my better nutrition skill, which should be a lot of people talking about better nutrition, and likewise the better nutrition program. So then people would just email me through the better nutrition program to submit any content and to talk to me about submitting content for it.
When we're thinking about guiding people to healthier choices and working with consumers, how do we guide them to get these better choices as dietitians, either on a large platform like Facebook or Twitter, or just individually one-on-one? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, and I actually have done a couple of webinars. They're available for free, and I have engaged other people who are much better at things like online marketing. And for me, the real game changer was I was thinking about what I needed to do on Facebook or what I needed to do on YouTube, or even just bringing people to my website. I was not thinking about how do I actually help someone get from me what they're looking for. And that's embarrassing to admit, but I'm comfortable admitting it. And the reason I admit it is I was trained as a dietitian. I was not trained as a salesperson for products. Although that's kind of a lie because I did the marketing stuff before. But when I became a dietitian, right? And the second part about it is the only people who are getting really rich off of Facebook or Twitter are Facebook and Instagram, and which are now owned by Facebook, and Twitter and Google, and that kind of a thing. And so giving them money started to say to me, like, so what's the ROI? And for me, it's not just the return on investment from a dollar standpoint, but we are businesses. It's really a return on impact. So I think as dietitians, we got into this business because we want to impact the health of individuals and the health of the country. And so I need to know when I'm doing something that what I am doing is going to have impact. And so a really big change for me was actually to learn about tools that could help me make my messaging more effective, and then also could aggregate it in a way that I knew who I was talking to. And that's very different today that we're able to do that online or through social marketing or that piece. So I also have a free guide that connects you to any of the resources that I have through this, and I use it through a lead digit, so people can text, and we'll put this in the show notes, but NutraBiz 123 to the number 44222. And I'll remind that at the end. But in order, when doing that in there, I'll show you what was probably the biggest game changer for me. So I mentioned I've been doing this for 20 years. I was doing it first a little bit in New York and then out in LA. I've had a lot of exposure through the media, whether it's TV shows, magazines, online podcasts, all of these different pieces. But I didn't have a way to know who I was reaching, and then also how to connect them to specifically what they wanted to get from me. And to my point in the last conversation, we have to make sure that we are always talking to them about what they can get from me is not just like, oh, it's high value, blah, blah, blah. No, it is what they need, right? Because we are, as dietitians, we are return on impact. We want to have that impact. And so there, I learned that way more important than putting my Facebook icon on something, or way more important than even having the lower third of a TV show have my name spelled correctly, or even my RD, because we all know how hard that part is. Like, they always leave the RD off, or call me a nutritionist. So even more important than any of that, even having my website up there, is I have a tool, and I use this lead digit tool, and there are other versions of it, etc. It's not expensive, and I use it to give people a guide that has more information. They can text to get it, or they can email me for it. And when they get that, then they come in to me, and I know that they got it from seeing me on that TV segment or from a specific Facebook post or, that kind of a thing. So when I now connect with them, I can say legitimately, hey, Mathea, so great that you reached out for my magnesium evaluation. I'm excited to, have you see where you're getting magnesium and what's already better. Yay, keep doing that. And what could be better. And what did you think about the segment? Like I showed you a couple of, ideas for chocolate in there. Are you someone who likes chocolate? And then suddenly we have it's just like you were in my office, right? And we can handle all of that through email and through my connection with you because I know where you came to me. So I think it's going to be essential for dietitians to not just do something. Like everybody says, like, oh, I want to go on TV, or not everybody, but people want to go on TV, or someone wants to have a podcast, or they want to, I need to do SEO or Google ads or any of that stuff. But don't do any of that. Those are great to generate leads. But if you don't know where you're taking someone on a journey, and another part, and this is very humbling, so I had a list of about, I think we were at 45,000 roughly, and I had done nothing with my list. I just had this list. I've had it for, over a period of time. And when I started looking at the list, I was like, well, I don't know where any of these people, well, do you know, I let go. I sent an email out to everybody and said, hey, I haven't really, I've been sending my newsletter, doing all this stuff, but I don't really know, so these are the things I offer. Are you looking for it? And if you're not looking for it, just let me know, because who wants an inbox full of Ashley, if it's not useful, right? And so we had about 11,000 of that 45,000 go away. And if anyone focuses on their business and they think, oh my gosh, she went from 45,000 to 34,000. Well, let me tell you, the 34,000 that I have now are the engagement is 16 times more significant. I've looked at these numbers, and I'm getting fun things like people responding to stuff saying hey, do you want, and they exactly what I wanted from them. Hey, you asked me to tell you what's better. Here's what's going on that's better. Hey, I really wish you would create this, or hey, is there a place that I could get, such and such. And so I think you have to be a little bit disruptive, or to use your phrase, appreciate that there is a paradigm shift, and just doing marketing and learning to do marketing the way that all of these coaches and courses and programs and all that stuff, that is not going to cut it. You need to go back to what we do as dietitians that is totally unique from what other people do, and that is we cultivate relationships with people to help them get healthier, powered by improving their nutrition. And that has to be what you do in wherever you choose to, connect with people. So it's a long, very preachy answer, but hopefully it explains what I'm doing and how I'm doing it a little bit differently.
That was just golden. I do exactly what you're talking about. And it's so great when people reply to me and tell me, thank you for the encouragement. Thank you for the recipe. This is what I've done. This is what's changed. This is what I need. And that you're making a difference to them. And I love that. We kind of think sometimes that marketing is a quote unquote dirty word because it seems like Dr. Oz and everything is all marketing. But what they're doing, if you look at what they're doing, you can take that and do it in your own way. So like you talked about in the beginning, what is the outcome they want? They want better skin. Dr. Oz says, here's a cream for that. Your outcome is this. So
I love to discuss this. So first of all, I really admire him. I think I have a good relationship with him. So he is not his show. There's a whole show, there's a machine behind it. But to your point, we can all learn. And I also encourage anyone to, rather than say hey, oh gosh, he just does marketing, or he just says, hey, there's a cream for that. First of all, if you happen to be in a place where you're engaged with a show in any capacity, you do not have to do what they say. So I repeatedly, they always laugh, I'm so engaged with a script. I will say, you know what, I am not going to say that. There was a time they were trying to get me to talk about wine as being like okay for, and I can't remember what it was, just because it was like, oh, well, let's just tell people a little bit of wine is, and they weren't wrong, but I felt that it was wrong to it was a stretch to say on that part. And I said, so I actually said to him, I was like, so if you want to say that, you can say that, but as a dietitian, I would never say it. He's like, I'm not going to say that. And so he turned to the people and was like, why is that in the script? So we, just the same way that we have to stand up to doctors in the hospital and make sure they hear us, like we need to do that, in that setting. And then the other thing that they do that I think is a great thing for us to learn from is they do teasers. And so where some of the most egregious information comes is actually not in the show, but it's, where people can perceive like, oh, he's just saying that or he's doing that. No, he's doing that to get somebody to tune in. And so I think what you want to be careful, what we as dietitians want to be careful about is there is a marketing technique called clickbait where you can write any headline and get somebody to click on, but you better hold yourself accountable. If your name is going to be associated with the clickbait, you better be okay with me thinking that about you. And I think like that, whether it's, the Food Babe, whether it's Dr. Oz, whether it's, and I could look outside of our space, into other areas, in any type of advertising and marketing, you really need to make sure that you're okay with those pieces, because when you substantively read somebody's book or you watch their show or you get their whole explanation, they're not just recommending a cream for your skin, right? But what you thought was they were recommending a cream for their skin because they're clickbait or their teaser. So one of the things about dietitians is I think that we can do better and really help people and lead the way by having we have these ways to help people understand that we are going to get them results and explain it's going to be deliciously easy. And we're going to give you those tools, or we're going to show you exactly how to do it, but we're not going to tell you something that actually isn't true. And that's a really good place. We only can know that for ourselves, what that barometer of like what's true or not is.
Well, I appreciate you mentioning that, because I love like Ryan Seacrest on American Idol, the promo right before they go to commercial. We're going to tell you who won after the commercial. So, how can we put out things that are engaging our audience, that they're interested in, that they're seeing in the media? But you're right. We have to be true to ourselves. So we're not going to say 10 ways you're going to lose 10 pounds this week, but we might say 10 ways you can have a better body, better health in a week. And that is a true statement. You can switch what you're eating or whatever, but lovely. I love talking about marketing. So you have any more little tips on marketing or?
Oh my gosh. I have like 4 webinars, 3 quick guides, like all of these things.
Just share a couple more quick tips that might help, and then we'll go on.
So one of the things about email communications, I spent a long time, whether it's newsletters or the emails I send to people. So remember, now I know like, hey, if you downloaded my magnesium guide, right? So they text CALM123 to 44222, they get the magnesium guide. I actually tell people when they get that, you are going to get 4 emails from me. Because I want to make sure that you actually use this guide, right? And use it so that you get better results. So if you don't want those 4 emails, if it worked for you to get the guide and you're off and running, then just make sure, put me in your junk. Like just be like, anything else from this email. And I actually say that up front, first thing in my email. And then I go through and I talk about in my email just one thing. So one of the things that we as dietitians are not good at, and one of the things that we can be better, and I will certainly say this, Ashley Koff, RD, is not good at, is I like to tell people a lot of things that they can do. You just asked me, you said, come on, give us more tips, right? As if like the one tip of like just focusing on a health outcome as opposed to a nutrition one isn't like, I know that would just move every one of your businesses epically forward. And so I shouldn't give in and give you another tip, because what I've learned is just one call to action, one tip, and what should they do with it. However, to your point about we're not going to tell somebody 10 days and all that stuff, what I do at the end is I do tease them. So I'll say, so now you learned about magnesium, and in my next email, I'm going to give you 3 of my favorite ways to get magnesium in. And so then I said, make sure you're looking for that. In another email, I might say, so remember, there's one thing that will, no matter, even if you're getting the right amount of magnesium in, there's one thing that's still going to keep your body from turning off the stress response. I promise you that is the highest open rate that I have of any email. Everybody wants to understand, because part of what I presented to you is it's actually not that you need to deal with your stress. Of course, I want people dealing with their stress. But I've shown you that if your body has what it needs to turn off the stress response, you're going to do better. Everybody wants to know both what can I do to turn off the stress response, i.e. magnesium, and number two, what would keep me from having it be effective even if I get the magnesium part right. So I think that the other tip on this piece is there is a way of communicating with people. And, if we go back to soap notes, we all learned, if you were like me, I couldn't wait to be done with them. I'm like, soap notes are so stupid. I sit here, I write all these things. I write this beautiful note in, because back in the day I was writing them because I'm that old. Yeah, I write it in my, and I had to learn, I had to get it approved by my, internship director. Then I could even put it into the chart. And by that point, I'm like, really, who's even reading it and blah, blah. And the doctors would even say to me, oh my gosh, I'm just looking at your pee, right? Like, I'm just going to breeze through this. However, we know that when we did soap notes and when we learned to do it, our thought process and also what somebody who was reviewing that could get was an insight into our thought process, and we took them along the way. And so there is a thought process for more effective emails that can elevate your communication to a way that actually gets a call to action. And I had to learn this. So one of the things I think that's really valuable from a marketing standpoint is to turn around and say, and actually look at people who are doing, and companies that are doing the best marketing. What is making you actually purchase? What do you subscribe to? What are you looking forward to? What emails do you always open? And then think about, now that I'm a dietitian, I want to understand, what's their soap note in there? What was their process? Did they come to me from a pain point? Did they come to me? And when you look at that part, you can start to say, okay, now I put it in, I insert my information, but I can follow the flow or the tip. So as I said, one of them is just being where other people aren't. I am totally tired of being where everybody is. But even within Facebook, I do more now in my groups, and I interact with more of you in groups. That's how we met. Than I do. I'm not just sitting there doing Facebook posts. I'm not going to spend my time on that part. Or if I do a Facebook post, or even if I'm invited to, to do a sponsored post, of course, I'm going to note that that's a sponsored post. But if I'm doing that, then I got to make sure there's a call to action in there, and that I'm actually giving somebody something that can have, for me, return on impact.
Well, I'll just tell everybody, I'll remind them, most people today probably haven't heard about soap notes unless they're 20 years old dietitians like us. So it's subjective, objective. So subjective is like what you talk to the patient about, what they told you. And then objective is like your labs and all the stuff you can find in the chart. And then assessment is what you think. So it'd be your nutrition care plan or whatever, or nutrition, what is it called? Statement.
Assessment. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah. You have like your nutrition diagnosis statement.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then your P is your plan. So for those of you who are like, what in the heck is a soap note? That's what it is. So yes. And it was how we thought about things. And yeah, it was probably one of the most detailed notes in the chart. Yeah.
It's like you weren't passing to get your RD if you didn't do a good soap note in any capacity. But, I think so anyway, I think that, for us from a marketing standpoint, so first of all, what you are doing is so awesome, because by bringing in people, so people listening right now might be like, okay, I don't even want to ever listen to a dietitian that was on Dr. Oz. And you know what? If you think that, I am good with that. Just take from me what I said about the difference in the communication. Or somebody else might say, she talks really fast, I don't get what she's talking about. But then the next expert that you have on is going to be somebody that they can really relate to, right? And so I think that there's one of the great things about today is there are a lot of different people for us to interact with. I learned so much. I learned from you today. I learned so much from how different dietitians are doing their business, that I just love that you're putting it together all into a podcast that I can listen to. And it gets me very excited. So thank you.
Well, thank you. What do you think is next in like nutrition, or kind of what we've been talking about, marketing, nutrition and marketing, and how do you see that affecting healthcare? So how does it affect what we're doing in the next 5-10 years?
the infobesity piece to me runs pretty, like, that concerns me a lot. And so unfortunately, or fortunately, what's next is so much money and effort and attention to this space, which is awesome. Like, it was definitely not the case when you and I got started, but it's also very concerning because when everybody's trying something and when brands, it's hard enough to deal with all the new food products and supplements that all have publicists, but now all these healthcare companies have publicists. So I think that that's a hard thing for us. One of the great things is we are, and we're not like, this isn't like off into the future. We're moments away from at home or in-person testing so that you can know things, right? Whether it's with your mobile device or whether it's with strips, or testing, even just the invention of being able to prick your finger and see your blood sugar. But because we're able to see these things in the moment, we as dietitians can have a much more immediate impact with people and just even doing a virtual consult. So I moved to a virtual practice when I was in LA, probably even like about 10 years ago, starting maybe like 8 years ago. And one of the great things was I would open with, so it's fun that we're both in Los Angeles. And I want to tell you that you already, if you take nothing else away from our consult today, you already are healthier. And they would go, what is she talking about? Is this her way of like charging a lot and like not doing anything? And I go, so you did not have to get into your car and deal with the stress of getting to my office, traffic, parking, spending money. So I want to think about, like, I've already shown you how you could invest your time better. Now you're in your kitchen. We can have a focused discussion about what you do in your kitchen or what's in your kitchen, or we can literally have you now with your phone. I literally will have people go over to their supplement cupboard or whatever and show me what it is that they actually have, right? Or take a screenshot of it and show me. And so we're able to move things into a much more personalized, immediate response. Because of that, what we also know is the role of the dietitian has never been more important. Because if you understand this key piece, if you understand that you are not a source of information, I want to be really clear when I say that. You are not a source of information. You need to be a partner, a vehicle, a tool for somebody to use to get better results. So if you couch yourself as a source of information, they are going to compare you to all other sources of information. But if you are a tool and an exceptional tool and a better tool and one that's worthy of investment and one that can be with them when they need you and one that has certain skill, any of these things, wow, like that's different. And it also allows you to be a tool for other practitioners. So as a doctor, a doctor can turn around and say, oh, literally, I might not know certain things about nutrition, but I do this for one doctor in particular. So he actually knows that we have times where we have built into the calendar where we Skype in his office and go through certain patients. He has a series of patients he wants to ask me nutrition questions about. And we go through all of those and he pays me my hourly rate. And sometimes it's 4 hours because he has a lot of patients with nutrition questions. So if you mold yourself to being and focus on being what I know you actually are, and you aren't just hey, I am someone with information. So if you tell me that cinnamon is a source of antioxidants, then shame on you because for thinking that you're going to have a business that's different than Google. And Google gets to tell people a lot of information. And so you're not going to compete with Google. And you're probably not going to compete with the person who is selling cinnamon because they have a lot more vested in talking about that part. So I think that's, where we're going is this amazing space for us as dietitians if we position ourselves properly and we're poised to shift our business model or are capable of shifting our business models to be ones that meet today's consumer and today's practitioner where they are as well as tomorrow's.
That was great. I love it. I like the idea of thinking of yourself more as a filter or a focus instead of a source of information, because you're right. They can get it from a lot of people. And if you don't have that know, like, and trust with them, they're not necessarily going to believe you over Dr. Google. So
Exactly.
Okay, Ashley, my fun question. What's your favorite food
Yeah, I could say chocolate, but the thing is, like, I love broccoli that's sauteed in olive oil with some garlic and a pinch of sea salt. And I probably love it more than I love chocolate. But if you told me I could never have chocolate again, I'd probably be more like rebellious than if you told me I could never have broccoli again. So there goes the issue of green vegetables. Yeah. Okay. That's what I'm going to say.
Okay. All right, Ashley, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It was a pleasure to have you on the show. I know my listeners have learned a lot about not only your Better Nutrition products, but just that paradigm shift, that different thinking about nutrition and marketing. So if listeners want to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
I invite you to, depends on what you want to connect with me for. If you want to connect with me because you've got nutrition questions, open my Better Nutrition skill on Alexa and go to town, right? If you want to connect with me about being a Better Nutrition affiliate, a Better Nutrition provider, pop over to the Better Nutrition program and sign up to be an affiliate. It's a 50-50 financial split, and it gives you access to all of my tools for for anyone that you're working with, and also for yourself. And then if you have questions for me, you can find me in the usual spots, but probably the easiest thing to do is to just send me an email directly. I'm at ashleykoff.approved@gmail.com, and just give thought to what you're emailing me about so that hopefully we can connect and I can be helpful to you.
Do you want to remind them about the lead digits?
Yes, thank you so much. So with if you were interested in some of the nutrition tools, the marketing tips that I was talking about for building your Better Nutrition business, you want to text NutraBiz123 to 44222. And that's Nutra like nutrition, so NutriBiz 123 to 44222. If you want calcium, if you want to know about your magnesium, then text CALM123 also to 44222. And you can do both. You'll just get the emails from me.
Okay. Well, guys, this has been another great episode of the Nutrition Experts Podcast, the podcast that is all about learning more so you can do more with nutrition in your life.
You've just listened to an episode of the Nutrition Experts Podcast. Be sure to get more information about this week's episode at www.nutritionexpertspodcast.com. Tune in next time for another great conversation with a nutrition expert and expand your personal knowledge in the field of nutrition, one conversation at a time.